Welcome to Paranormal Night Shift, your home for all things that go bump in the dark and your fan stories told here. Today's story comes from Ryan and is called The Monster Under the Bed. As a dad, we all have our nighttime duties, right? Say your prayers, brush your teeth, tuck everybody in, and always check under the bed for monsters. But I never thought in a million years that my monster under the bed would become a reality. Started when we moved into our new house. Everything was fine. Little man seemed to absolutely love it, but he continued to talk about monsters under the bed. He heard things all the time, from in the closet, under the bed, and I told him, "You're getting a little bit too old to believe in monsters now. It's getting a little silly, okay? Say your prayers and go to sleep. I don't want to hear anything else about monsters." My ex-wife and I had marital issues. I had joint custody, but I worked all the time, so I really only got little man on the weekend. And I was working all the time. It didn't really make a difference. The only days I had off were the days he was there. I worked night shift, and most of the time when I came home, I was just absolutely exhausted. I didn't have enough time to really listen to my new house or hear my new house settle. It just was a place to sleep, really. The weekends were the only time that I was actually home. And one weekend, I was home by myself. My ex-wife decided that she was going out of town. She asked if she could have him that weekend, so it was the first time since I had been single and newly divorced that I actually had the house to myself. And like any newly divorced man, I stayed home. I didn't do anything. I stayed home, watched TV, and that's when I started to hear my house. It sounded like something was moving. I could hear it every now and then, very faintly. It honestly sounded like the walls were breathing. I looked everywhere that I could, trying to find the source of the sound, but I didn't see anything. I just figured this is the first time that I've really been alone in a long time, too, so Maybe it's all just getting to me. Maybe it's just getting to me and I'm overthinking this. That was the first time that I'd been in the house by myself, and I was just being silly, right? There's no such thing as monsters. I'm going to tell you that I wasn't freaked out. I started noticing more things about the house, more creaks, and I tried to come home early every now and then. Maybe I just needed some daylight, something like that. Working night shift, your mind's always messed up in the first place. So I stayed up a couple of days. I worked and stayed up and just tried to get a feel for the house, but everything just felt off. The energy in the house felt off. Everything felt weird. The house felt alive. The next weekend I had little man. We spent most of the day hanging out and having a good time. I really didn't want to be in the house with him. I felt nervous in the house with him. We hung out and went and watched some movies, had a good time, ate popcorn, and we finally made it back to the house, I don't know, maybe midnight. His mom would have gotten so mad at me. I laid him in bed and he said, Dad, check under my bed for monsters, please." I looked under his bed and I didn't see anything. Candy bar wrappers, some Pepsis, things like that. Nothing that you wouldn't expect to see under a kid's bed. But then I remembered, he hadn't been here. I always made him clean his room before I dropped him off. He hadn't been here. Surely I wouldn't have just let him leave trash under his bed. I made him clean his bed up under his bed before he went to sleep. 2 o'clock in the morning, I was woke up by my 8-year-old coming into my bed. "Dad, there's a monster in my room, Dad. There's a monster under my bed. I hear it. There's a monster under my room." What are you talking about? Just come get in bed, buddy. Come get in bed. You're being foolish. Just get in bed. But that's when I heard it. In his room, I could hear what sounded like something moving. It sounded like there was someone or something in his room. I crept quietly to his room, and I put my ear to the door, and that's when I started to hear it. There was something in his room. I could hear it moving around. I could hear it moving somewhere. I figured maybe it was a squirrel or something like that, but sounded so large. It sounded inhuman. It was large, and it made so much noise. Why was this so loud? As a dad, I knew what I had to do. I had to protect my son, but I was still absolutely terrified myself. I slung the door open, and that's when I saw it. A hand underneath my son's bed came out. There was a hand. I saw it. I flipped his bed over, and I saw it. A hand and eyes. 2 eyes moving a floorboard underneath his bed. It was a human. It was a man underneath my son's bed. It was under my house. I protected myself, if you know what I mean, and I called 911. I told whoever it was, that the police were on their way. The police surrounded my house, and we opened the crawl space door underneath my house to find a man. A man who had been living under my house for months now, in a crawl space no more than 2 feet high. He had lived under there since we had moved in, and every day that I was at work, he would come under my son's bed, sleep in the bed, eat our food, shower in our showers. He said he watched us when we moved in. He knew that I worked night shift and that I would be asleep during the day and away at night. So he would wait until I'd left to work and basically use the house as his own house. Charges were pressed, and other than trespassing and maybe breaking and entering, nothing stuck. Just a homeless man living underneath my house, coming in, eating our food, and scaring my children. There are things that go bump in the night, but sometimes there really are monsters under the bed. Thank you, Ryan, for your story. We are definitely going to send you some Paranormal Night Shift stickers, buddy. I actually had the privilege to talk to Ryan about this story, and I get a lot of them. This one kind of freaked me out as a dad, I'm not going to lie. The idea that someone is living under your house is far scarier than anything else that would go bump in the night. Thank you so much for sending in your stories, and please send all your stories in to Paranormal Night Shift. I hope you enjoyed.